Hi, this is Jay Billis of ESPN, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
It is indeed the ML Sports Platter, all over the major platforms where you get podcasts. Download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. We are brought to you by Camillus Golf Club, the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group, and Brewerton Ace Hardware. I am super excited to bring on to the program a guy who I've respected for a long, long time. He's one of the best in the business, a total pro, an amazing author. He has a brand new book out right now, and it is absolutely, positively incredible. And it's for all Yankee fans, all baseball fans. Make sure that you go pick up his great book. It is titled Maris and Mantle, Two Yankees, Immortality, and the Age of Camelot. Online where books are sold. Your nearby bookstores as well. Tony's got a ton of great books that he's written in the past. You can go visit TonyCastro.org, and he's a New York Times best-selling author. He's been covering the game of baseball forever. On Twitter, at Tony_Castro. And my goodness, time flies, right? 61, Maris and Mantle, Tony. 60-year anniversary of that unbelievable year. Congratulations on the book and welcome in.
Thank you so much for having me.
60 years. How was that possible? Right?
60 years and counting, and it seems to some people anyway that I've been talking to, they tell me stories of having been at the ballpark that day when Maris hit his 60th home run, and for them they say it's like it happened last week.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is one of those things where, you know, when you have a season like that or a dynasty in sports or you have a big life event, whatever the case may be, they're all kind of roped into one where it feels like yesterday and yet it does, in a way, feel like it was a long time ago. Why was it, I guess, right in the sense of Roger Maris being who he was? Why was it so right that he did it instead of Mantle? Was there a reason?
He was healthy, for one. He didn't have too many healthy seasons. And this was probably his healthiest of all. So that goes into it starting off. Secondly, you know, you had Mantle batting behind him. He was protecting him, as they say in the sport. Pitchers were forced to pitch to Roger Maris most of that year with Mantle on deck. Yeah. And that's not, you know, the option for putting a guy on, no matter how well he's hitting, is not really there. I mean, Roger got intentionally walked that year 0 times. So that'll tell you how much they wanted to pitch to Maris, and he was having a good year. He'd had a good year with the Yankees the year before. He was known to be a mean hitter, and especially there in the short porch of Yankee Stadium at that time.
He had a hard time, though, with the fans because Mantle was such a favorite at that point. It's funny, Mantle had a hard time with the fans because their guy was Yogi Berra, their guy was Joe DiMaggio, and it took a long time. Even when Mantle was crushing it, Mantle was still booed a lot. Mantle just wasn't welcomed all the way, 100%. And then finally, he was, maybe around that 56 time when he won the Triple Crown. And then he just became the darling, and he was the guy. You're never invincible from the Bronx boos, as you know, Tony, but Mantle was the guy compared to Maris. If Mantle had done it, how would we view Mantle, Maris, single-season home run records, Ruth, Bonds? How would we view all of it if it was Mantle and not Maris?
We would view it as history as we expected it to be. In 1956, after the season the great season Mantle had at that time, winning a Triple Crown, challenging the Ruth record for a while, hitting 52 home runs. At the end of that season, there's this great quote of his that's on tape in various different places, and he says something to the effect that he was glad. He was happy to have won the Triple Crown that year as opposed to breaking Ruth's record because he figured he was going to be playing for another 12 to 14 years. And if he could play that long, he felt confident he would break Babe Ruth's record. It was one of the inevitabilities that people figured into it, that Mantle was going to break the record. And of course, whenever there's an inevitability in anything, whether it's this or whether it was, remember Hillary Clinton, it was inevitable that she be president. In 2008, the bets were all on Hillary Clinton. In 2016, they were all on her until about 10 o'clock at night on election night. So inevitabilities, whenever you hear something, the inevitability of so-and-so, you can kind of toss it out the window. And that was, I think, what happened there, that had Mantle won that race to beat Ruth, we would all be thinking, well, it is as it's expected. We feel comfortable. It's like sitting in stepping into a warm bath as opposed to a hot bath or a cold bath. It makes us feel confident that our world is what it is and what we expect it to be. And that didn't happen, and that upset a lot of people. And as far as Yankee fans, I mean, so a book on the psychology of baseball fans, but especially Yankee fans, could probably be written with everything having to do with the things you were talking about there. Mantle is a perfect case study there, coming in and being so disliked at the beginning. And actually, that's not true. In 1951, his rookie season, he got up to such a fabulous start that everybody thought this guy is going to be the answer to all our prayers, and especially with Joe playing his last season. Yeah. And, of course, that only lasted a few weeks, and then Mantle went into this terrible slump that inevitably, there's that word again, put him being in a, he was sent to the minors. He was sent to play at the Kansas City farm team that at that time belonged to the Yankees. So there was, with Mantle, the idea that he would be replacing DiMaggio, and that brought on some boos from those DiMaggio lovers, and there were very many, and for good reason. And then later, when he disappointed all of those that thought this is the new god, he couldn't live up to those expectations. And even after DiMaggio was gone, those boos were crazy, up through probably 59, if you read everything that's been written, that in 59, 60, when Maris came in, it was somebody else. And Maris wasn't accepted because he wasn't a Yankee from the start. He'd been with two other teams. He came over in a trade from Kansas City, which at that time was like a wholly owned subsidiary of, by this time, Kansas City was, of course, a major league team, but it was a wholly owned subsidiary of the Yankees. They could move players back and forth. Yeah. And this is how Maris came into being.
Yeah, no doubt. God, I love this stuff. I could talk for hours about this stuff. Tony Castro, our guest here on the ML Sports Platter. The book is out online. Major bookstores where books are sold, go get it. Must read Maris and Mantle, Two Yankees, Baseball Immortality, and The Age of Camelot. Mickey is just this historical icon, young, good-looking, great physical tools, amazing baseball skills, hits from both sides of the plate, got the perfect baseball name, plays in the pinstripes. Like, he's the first real, I think, baseball TV hero as well. He played in October after October, so everybody got to see him as well. All the home run derbies. People often ask me, like, hey, you're such a baseball sucker and you love the history of the game. Who's the one guy you'd go back and watch play in a time machine? Would it be Ruth or Satchel Paige, or would it be Jackie Robinson? Would it be Lou Gehrig? I got to tell you, I from hearing stories from my dad and from my grandmother from long ago, and from everyone, Clete Boyer, who I interviewed a bunch of times, Bobby Richardson's been on the show a bunch of times, both the radio and now the podcast, Tony. I got to tell you, I might choose Mickey Mantle. I mean, there are very few people in the history of baseball who captured the imagination of Yankee fans, baseball fans, television, America, the whole type thing. He's a generational type guy. He's an icon, the baseball card industry. I don't know if there's many people who compare to Mantle. Tony, what do you think?
Mantle is a man for the ages. Was a man for the ages in his time. He was, had he been in Greek mythology, he would have been Achilles.
Yeah,
and
right.
Had he been in the Bible, he would have been David.
Yeah.
Who besides David do you know who could pull off some of the crazy, ridiculous stunts that Mantle did over his lifetime? I'm not talking about the athletic feats. I'm talking about some of the personal embarrassments that Mantle got himself involved in, some of the absurdities of all of it, even down to drinking himself to death, and at the end being loved by everyone. And he was like David, the man who could be forgiven by God at every turn. And this was Mickey Mantle for his entire career, a man who, poor sainted Merlin Mantle, his wife. I mean, she put up with everything in this, including this man living with another woman for the last 10 years of his life, and dying, and all but dying in this other woman's arms. And she still, to her dying breath, I think, fought for Mantle's recognition as one of the superior players in the game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mantle, it's funny because you oftentimes hear from people, just in general, man, if Mickey had kept himself healthy, if Mickey had done this, if Mickey hadn't drank, if Mickey had, but by the same token, he's in New York, he's kind of off the walls. I understand that, despite being best friends with Bobby Richardson, they were two completely different people in terms of their off-the-field behavior. You can say all of it. I throw all of it out the window. He was center field for the New York Yankees. He took over for Joe DiMaggio. He was, the pressure was real. He wore that uniform. All they had done was win before him. Every Yankee who wears that uniform, whether you're an icon or not, Tony, they've won before. They've had dynasties before you. So you need to now match up to all the other greats of the past, DiMaggio, Ruth, Gehrig, etc., Berra. What I'm getting at is, I think those people talk too much about what Mickey didn't do when they should talk about what he did do. I think Mickey Mantle, with what he did do, the 500 home run club, the switch hitter, winning a Triple Crown, the speed power combo, which is unmatched in baseball history. Why don't we talk more about what he did instead of, by the way, 3 MVPs. Why don't we talk more about what he did instead of, well, if Mantle had kept care of himself, he would have done this. Well, you don't really know that, do you?
Mantle was his own worst enemy throughout his playing days and even afterwards. I'll give you a great story of how I met Mickey Mantle. It was 1970. It was just out of Baylor University. I was 22. I was in Dallas working for the Dallas Times-Herald. Wow. And Mantle had been my hero growing up, and I knew he lived in Dallas. I knew he had a bowling alley there. He actually no longer had one by that time. And one day I'm sitting at the city desk because I'm a general assignment reporter, and I'm going through the Rolodex. Boom, Mickey Mantle's name pops up, and I'm thinking, wow, he's here. And then I figure, okay, yeah, of course he lives here. Yeah, I should have known that, pendejo. I go and check our clip file. Nothing had been done really on Mantle in a while. So I go and talk to the people in the sports desk, because at the time I wasn't a sports writer. I made my name as a political writer in Dallas and Houston and Washington. The genesis for this book came as something in interviewing Arthur Schlesinger Jr., the presidential historian, and interviewing him back in Boston. But here it is in 1970. I go back there and ask, look, are you interested in somebody doing a piece on Mantle? No one's done anything recently. He's been retired a couple of years. He'll be going to the Hall of Fame in 3 years. Nobody gave a hoot about Mickey Mantle. Wow. Part of it being because every time they tried to interview him, Mantle, who was, in his cups at the time, just drunk and unfriendly, was ruder to the media people in Dallas than he was ever in New York. And in New York, they could take it. I mean, New York newspaper people then and now are just tough as nails. Yeah. They'll stay right there and ask you question after question, no matter how much you may hate it. Dallas newspaper people and public newspaper people around the country are not the same way. Especially at that time, in 1970, there was no professional baseball in Dallas. You had the Dallas Cowboys. They owned the city. It was a football town. So nobody cared about it. And I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. So, yeah, if you want to do a piece, go do a piece on Mantle. And that's what happened. I called him up 2 or 3 times, finally bugged him enough to where he met me at a restaurant over in the Turtle Creek area of Dallas. And that's how I got to know him, because no one else wanted to interview him. He was persona non grata in Dallas. He had, and he didn't care. There's a famous story about how at Mickey's home golf course, Preston Trails, North Preston Trail Country Club out there in North Dallas, there's a Mickey Mantle rule that they put in because of Mickey Mantle. Mickey had this habit of just not, part of him was an exhibitionist, I think, at the time, as much as anything else. He would come in, take a shower, have get a beer or whatever.
Or four.
And then, or four. And go into the clubhouse dining area with a towel wrapped around his waist. And sometimes that towel didn't stay there. Yeah. And there were no women. I mean, this was an all-men's club, so it wasn't like he was trying to show off his birthright with women there. He just didn't care. And it was his own way of, I guess, giving the finger to all of these rich doctors and professionals in Dallas. And they put in within about a year or so after his membership there, they put in a Mickey Mantle rule that stands to this day. There used to be, I don't know if they still keep it, a cardboard cutout, Mickey Mantle rule. You have to be fully dressed to come into the clubhouse.
Wow.
Into the restaurant, rather.
Yeah, I remember I went to Mickey Mantle's restaurant in New York a long, long time ago when it was still open. It was a pretty cool place, pretty fun. Roger Maris, is he actually underrated in baseball history? Can you make an argument for that, Tony?
Yeah, you can. Does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Yeah, I think he does.
What? Really?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Wow.
But I mean, but that's considering you've got people like Bill Mazeroski in the Hall of Fame for what? Hitting one home run that won a World Series.
Sure.
And you can
yeah.
say, well,
we could spend, you and I could spend 2 hours on a podcast, which I would be totally open to, on who should and shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Harold Baines is in the Hall of Fame, for God's sakes, because of the politicking, and yet we have other guys who aren't. Whole other discussion for another day, but yeah, from that standpoint.
Yeah, the Hall of Fame to me is, there are two, I was telling someone this the other day, there are two major disappointments for me in going somewhere that I hadn't been before.
Yeah.
One was the Alamo. God, you grew up in Texas, and you cherish the Alamo. It's like like a holy shrine to Protestant, Catholics, and others alike in Texas. My first time there was like, wow, this is the Alamo, huh? My God, why did Davy Crockett have to die here? Poor Alamo. The other is the Hall of Fame. I went into the Hall of Fame. I was a grown man when I first went there, and I guess I thought I was going to be walking into the Louvre. And it wasn't quite like that. And you've been there, you know what
Sure.
I'm talking about. You've got these 333 or however many enshrined plaques they have. And then the rest of it is like, wow, okay, a field museum, way up the top, Hall of Fame, nice place to visit. But, you're better off going to the James Fenimore Cooper house there in Cooperstown. The reason I'm throwing out this story and being so ridiculous about it, Mike, is that some of the people that are pushing for Maris to go into the Hall of Fame, I've said, hey, have you been to the Hall of Fame yourself? No, I haven't. Well, you ought to go. And you ought to use your money and your effort to build the Roger Maris Memorial Museum in Fargo, although that's too cold to go to, or to...
it sure is.
St. Louis would be the perfect place.
And
you'd probably get the Bush family to help out on that.
Sure. And that baseball community is the best in the game, in my humble opinion. That's...
It is.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this about being too cold, baseball's... The time that baseball could more easily make headway into just becoming the game that it once was, the national pastime, is the winter. Winter league meetings could be held at the Hall of Fame Museum. You could have packed crowds for different attractions during the winter. Cooperstown closes down as soon as the season is over for the most part. And by November, it's just too snowy to go there. By January, you're frozen. You can't really use the Hall of Fame except during the baseball season when people are, busy with other things, their vacations, their, going to their ballparks and preparing for the real, passion of the NFL, I suppose. And so I say that to my friends who are pushing for Roger in the Hall of Fame to say, look, celebrate Roger in the way that you can, which is year-round at many of these places, have these, you can have film each day, in a loop of Roger's 61 home runs that season. You can have a lot of other things that you don't have at the Hall of Fame. And friends that I know that have gone to the Hall of Fame as adults for the first time say the same thing. Wow, I guess I expected more. I went up the street. This one friend of mine here was telling me she was there for the first time with her son and a friend of theirs. And she said they had more about Mickey Mantle at one of the other stores up the street. Safe at Home, I think, is a store that now has a lot of, probably more Mantle memorabilia than the Hall of Fame.
Okay, what do you hope people say at the end of the book when they get done with that last page? What do you hope they say?
I hope they say that it gives you a different look at Roger Maris, who was an unusual man. I mean, Roger Maris, in many ways, you brought up the name of Bobby Richardson. Yep. If they were going to be best friends, it would have been Maris and Richardson.
Right.
Maris was the kind of guy, Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle's the kind of guy that you would want to have a beer with, hang out with, get drunk with, maybe even be yourself at, at your most vulnerable of times. Roger Maris is the man that you want your son to grow up to be. A guy who stands up for himself, a guy who doesn't put up with ridiculous demands on the part of the media or the part of fans even. A guy who, throughout his entire life, Roger Maris, if you check it out closely, is this guy who puts up with, a broken family that was not really broken, but really, when you get down to it, they had a lot of issues. An immigrant son, much like Lou Gehrig in that sense, growing up and becoming this hero. And I think no one had him as a bigger hero than Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Well, they were buddies through all this. People think that they were rivals and all. I mean, Mantle was in the hospital room cheering Maris on, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the way they wound up living together in 1961, the Billy Crystal movie, 61.
That's my favorite baseball movie, by the way, above all of them. Field of Dreams, everything. It's my favorite. Bull Durham, it's my favorite baseball movie. It is.
Okay, be warned. I mean, Billy Crystal's a great comedian. The movie is a tremendous entertainment. But it's like everything else put out in Hollywood. You've got they fictionalized the last Lincoln movie that they made that won Academy Awards. I mean, for whatever reason, they do this, whether it's for television or whether it's for major motion pictures. So you can take a lot of what's in that film with a grain of salt. The relationship that Mantle had with Joe DiMaggio, for one, was highly fictionalized and overly dramatized in that movie. The relationship that he had with Maris was simplified. And, Mantle continued to, when he was living with Roger and Bob Serve, and I forget who the other person was that they were living with, Mantle continued, in real life, being the playboy, the drinker, the out at all hours of the night and day kind of the thing, that isn't depicted in that movie. And in fact, that movie makes it seem like he cleaned up and he was Ozzie Nelson. of the Ozzie and Harriet show, which was not far from the truth, and so what I'm saying is that particular year in '61, Mantle continued being himself in many ways, and Maris himself as well. They were closer than many of us have been led to believe. They didn't have this off-field rivalry that was depicted in the tabloids at that time. And Mantle loved this guy. I mean, when Maris died in 1985, and he died in Houston, they moved transported the body to Fargo, North Dakota, where services were held. Mantle goes there, and it's incredibly cold. I mean, we're talking about December the 14th in Fargo. Who in their right mind, if they don't have to be there, goes there at that time? And Mantle trudges through the snow into the church. He sits there and just bawling his eyes out. It was he probably cried more for Roger than he did when his father died.
Yeah. Well, look, this has been absolutely unbelievable. I knew it would be. Tony Castro, go follow him on Twitter at Tony_Castro, the official Twitter page there of the New York Times best-selling author. You can go to TonyCastro.org and please go grab the book. It's called Maris and Mantle, Two Yankees, Baseball Immortality in the Age of Camelot. I can't imagine what it was like watching Maris and Mantle go at it in '61, chasing Babe Ruth. Amazon.com, major bookstores. Tony, thank you so much. Really appreciate all the interviews that we've done in past times. Continued success, and I can't wait to see what's next for you, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good day.
ML Sports Platter here, brought to you by our great friends at Bryant and Stratton College of Syracuse. Two great locations in Central New York, James Street and Oswego Street in Liverpool. BryantStratton.edu. Great time to be a Bobcat, man. Athletics, academics, and excellence at Bryant and Stratton College, a proud ML Sports Platter sponsor, and a great place to go get your degree out of high school, or if you're looking to change, your work field. Bryant and Stratton College can help you out. Go ahead and visit BryantStratton.edu. Fill out that incredible questionnaire as well, and visit the athletic website as well, bscbobcats.com. That's bscbobcats.com. I am super pumped up to bring onto the program a member of that Bryant and Stratton College of Syracuse family. It's Nick Dimitrievski. He is the terrific athletic director and head men's soccer coach for the Bobcats in Central New York. Nick, how are you, buddy? Great to have you again.
Everything is great. Thanks for having me.
No doubt. What have you learned about your team this year so far?
Wow, great question. We won the national championship in 2019, and last year, because of the COVID-stricken year, the season was cut short. So we got a really brand new team. We're young. We are trying to develop our relationships, trying to be a team. We had a soccer golf outing yesterday at West Silk Golf Course. So, it's a work in progress. We're 4-0-1.
I got to get in that next time, by the way.
yeah, please do. We got a really, really strong team, but we got new guys, and we need to get everybody up to speed and feel the brotherhood. So we're getting there.
Nice. Roster-wise, highlight some things that have happened, some youngsters, maybe some veterans as well, but it's a pretty complete roster and a versatile roster, Nick, right? Again, this year for the Bobcats?
Yeah, we got 3 captains, and all 3 captains are seniors, so it's a senior
that's nice
team.
Yeah.
A lot of experience coming back. We've got some good transfers in, some really talented guys that came in from Essex Community College, and Luca Natali and Constantinos. We're loaded. We just got to get a lot of these guys familiar with one another. I'm excited about the potential of what we can do. We're not there yet. We've rolled through our season here so far, but I'm excited of what it can end up.
No doubt. Where do you think your strength is?
Our experience, winning the national championship, I got a lot of those guys that are still here in their senior year. So that experience to go through and, go through your season and then win the playoffs and win the championship is priceless. So that means everything. And just the way we go about our style of soccer, so I think it's the system that we play as well.
I'll tell you, you guys are so impressive, and what has happened at Bryant and Stratton College. I mean, working with you guys obviously has been such a joy for me, but to see growth, and then you guys are championship. You have championship teams, yours being one. Did you ever think that it was possible when you first started? Did you ever think that level of, achievement was doable? Reaching for the stars, as they say. You're told that as a kid, right? Reach for the stars, chase your dreams. But you can do that, but sometimes it's pretty hard, right? But you guys have achieved that. Like, did you think that when you first started?
I never had that question asked to me before. Great question. So I remember my first interview 24 years ago with Ed Heinrich, and we didn't have a place to play. And my answer was, I just need a field. I don't care.
Right. Who cares at that point?
The field is. I will bring you the best players, the best system, the best everything. And that's what we did. And then when we're looking to hire coaches, we're looking for those coaches that have that grit about them, that will not let anything stand in their way to achieve their goals. So we've been really blessed, and we've been quite successful as well.
Okay, so a couple of more here for Nick Dimitrievski, the terrific head men's soccer coach at the Bobcat Central New York soccer team, and of course the athletic director as well. You've got, as we record this, you have a game, I believe, against the Bobcats of Rochester, and then you have 5 games in October that are huge games, obviously. The later it gets, the bigger it gets, right? So break down the rest of the schedule, and in October, you end with 3 road games there, Nick.
Yeah, so first of all, Wednesday we have an all-associates day at Jones Road at 4 o'clock. We play Bryant, Stratton, Rochester. So that should be a lot of people. I'd like to invite you there. That would be wonderful. Or anybody else that would like to stop by. When people that haven't seen us play and then they do see us play, they really enjoy it. It's a beautiful style game that we play. But these next couple games should be competitive. But as, like you said, the season starts to end here, starts to mid to late October, we're playing some heavy hitters. Yeah. And the Maine Fort Kent is the marquee game, which we beat them in the national championship, and that will be home here. So
that's always a great game.
It's a monster game. Yeah. It's a heavyweight battle. So we're excited. We're 4-1. The teams we've played are very, very good. And, if you're asking me, we should have been 5-0-1. We're winning with a couple minutes to go in the last game. We outshot them like 16-3, but we're learning from some of those mistakes. I like our team. I like our chances. I like what we're trying to do. And we have another month and a half to really cultivate everything to how we go about it.
All right, in the final minute or so I have left with you, and by the way, it's amazing to me. You've been with the program for 18 years. It's unbelievable how
24.
fast. 24, but off the website, the soccer program for 18, right? Isn't it?
No, it's 24.
Oh, it's 24 total. Okay, all right. Well, I know you mentioned 24 earlier in the interview, but I didn't know if that was totally, with the soccer program or just at the school in general. Right. So as you've gone on here and you've accomplished everything that you have, what's left? Keep winning?
Yeah, that's the easy answer. I enjoy what I do. Yeah. And I like really helping kids.
And it shows. It shows, by the way.
Yeah, on the soccer and becoming a man, a young man. And, me and one of my players just had that same conversation the other day, and it's really nice when you see a kid just really develop into a young man.
Yeah.
And I put that special attention to my little 6-year-old little monster. So
I see him all over the place.
He partaked in our preseason. He was there every day.
Yeah.
And the guys were like, what that kid is going to get from being a part of it. So,
yeah.
I still really enjoy it. Believe it or not, we're cultivating modern day techniques. Mm-hmm. That's what keeps us so fresh. And I like it. I still like it.
Well, I'll tell you, there is something to be said for growing up in a situation and an atmosphere. You look at Vlad Guerrero Jr. right now. You look at Bo Bichette. You look at Kevin Biggio with the Blue Jays. Their fathers were major leaguers, and one of them is in the Hall of Fame. And so, Patrick Mahomes grew up with his dad, playing baseball. He was at the park every day. You learn to be a professional. You're around the atmosphere. You soak it in. You listen to people. It's remarkable. And by the way, you guys, I think over the summer, if I'm not mistaken, I saw the pictures. You guys had a heck of a trip. I know I said another minute, but you had a heck of a trip over the summer. Why don't you highlight on that for a little bit?
I ended up going to Europe, and we ended up going to some Euro Cup games.
Crazy.
It's ridiculous to see France play, Macedonia play, and for my son to see it. So, I got to say this quick story that you'll love and the listeners will love.
Sure.
So, at one of our games, one of our forwards just made a few runs and, stopped. And I had the conversation with him after. I said, in the second half, I said, you got to run 20, 30, 50 times to be able to if you get the ball once, that's great, but your work ethic has got to be that. So after the game, this is wonderful. After the game, we're at McDonald's, we're sitting with the assistant coaches, my little guys, the 6 was there, and the kid happened to be next to me. And I said to him, I go, did you understand what I was saying to you a little bit? He goes, a little. And I go, watch this. So I pointed to my son. I said, Michael, how many runs do you have to make to get the ball? He said, you have to make 100 runs to touch the ball once. And I looked at my player and I said, do you see what I'm talking about? And he goes, got it. So that was unbelievable. And the kid from there has really opened up his world incredible. A little bit. How about going and doing stuff?
Wow. That's... Man, I'll tell you what, it's priceless when you get into stuff like that. He is the athletic director and head men's soccer coach for the Bobcats in Syracuse, a proud ML Sports Platter sponsor and the official college of the platform as well, BryantandStratton.edu. Go check out the questionnaire. They've got a bunch of great programs, nursing program, etc. was just introduced here a couple of months ago. So head on over to BryantStratton.edu and BSCBobcats.com. Just click on the Syracuse part, go right to the schedules, go right to the information, and you'll find out everything you need to know about Nick Dimitrievski's team. Charging towards another title, we hope. Nick, thank you so much, man. This was really fantastic.
Been a pleasure. Anytime, please reach out.
And the ML Sports Platter is brought to you by our good friends at Bryant and Stratton College of Syracuse, Stanley Law Offices, Rosie's Corner, and the Camillus Golf Club. If you're in and around Central New York, you got to play Camillus Golf Club. In fact, if you're in New York State, golfers travel. Come down from Buffalo, Watertown, Rochester, Scranton. I'm telling you, this place is great. 18 holes of championship golf, scenic views, and of course, the greens are to die for. Awesome food after your round as well. Camillus Golf Club, CamillusHillsGolfClub.com for more. That's CamillusHillsGolfClub.com for more information. And hey, don't wait to get your 2022 golf membership today. Hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.